This is Sarah Squires bringing you behind the headlines in today's edition of WyoToday Newsroom. Today, I am joined on the show by Game and Fish's Rene Schell. Welcome to the show, Rene.
Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, good to be here.
So I know it's a busy time of year. You know, things are kind of moving. We're sort of starting to feel that season change. And I know along with that, we want to kind of issue a warning for folks to really pay attention now that it's probably darker when you're coming home from work, to really keep an eye out for wildlife. What can you tell us about that, Rene?
Yeah, I feel like daylight savings time coordinates also in the fall with migration time and, probably in the spring too, some. So we have more animals moving as the seasons are changing. They're coming to lower elevations for food for the winter, and the day length is shortening as well. So those things both signal to them it's time to get moving. So some places, they're literally, moving across highways, and there may be a couple weeks when there are a lot of antelope or elk or deer moving. And then we have other places like the Dubois, Crowheart areas where that is their winter range. The Highway 26, 287, literally, and Highway 28, literally between Lander and South Pass, is winter range for these animals. So the highway just splits the middle of the winter range. I went through Dubois this Friday and came back yesterday. Friday I went through, it was, kind of the dusk hours. I have not seen so many deer in that area in multiple winters. So I was really excited for one thing. I thought, oh my gosh, the deer are rebounding and coming back. This is great. I mean, hundreds of deer in the field. Just scattered. I kept looking like, this can't be true. This can't be right. So all the deer, they're there for the whole winter. That's their winter range. They're not going anywhere else. Coming back through last night, it was already dark. It was 6:30. The number of deer along the roadside trying to cross the road, and then probably between the, kind of just outside Dubois over the pass to Crowheart, I probably saw 6 or 7 dead deer. That was just such a bummer. I know. And in that area, that stretch of highway in particular, we often hit more deer than are even taken in a hunting season. So, and this is why, this is not necessarily new information to people. This is why we've talked about that highway crossing project that's still in the works. We're just waiting for the federal funding. They don't like to give that federal funding to the state, the same state, multiple years in a row. So we kind of have to wait a little bit because we got some for another crossing. So maybe this next funding cycle, but that is still in the works. But it's not just that stretch. Another one is like that 28 that I mentioned between Lander and South Pass for elk and deer in particular. And then Pavilion area, and even between Lander and Riverton, just coming home. If you work in one and live in the other, it's now, like you said, dark when you're driving home. And so just really slowing down. There's some key things you can do. You can slow down, making it home safely, alive, with a vehicle intact, are all more important than getting home 10 minutes earlier, in my opinion. But sometimes it takes reminding yourself of that, I'm used to just getting in the car and going and hitting that speed that I always like to go and hitting the cruise or whatever it is. And just remembering, maybe slow down 5 to 10 miles an hour. Just expect that any time in that dusk, which I feel like is 4 o'clock now,
Yeah.
In those early dark hours, that just expect that wildlife are going to be on the side of the road. So I always have, if a second person is with me, I have them helping me scan the sides as well. If you see one animal, or in particular a dead animal, for every dead deer that I saw last night, I saw a live deer also trying to cross the highway in the same location. We barely missed 2. So, and of course we have the signs that say slow down, animals on the road, and we work with WYDOT to strategically place those in areas that we know are, high animal crossings or animals on roadways. And then if there is one, crossing the road, if you can slow down and avoid it, obviously that's the thing to do. I would say, don't try to outrun it. Don't try to go faster than it. don't swerve. It's really not an instinct. To me, the instinct is to swerve and try to get out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
But you can, cause more damage to yourself if the vehicle becomes out of control.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually better not to swerve. And if you have your brights on and you see an animal, number one, it is helpful to spot them with your brights on, but then sometimes they can get sort of mesmerized in your lights. So think about that too. I think those are some of the big things. And then those areas, just especially for us. I've also had a number of people do like level of damage, like totaling their vehicles so far this fall. So
yeah,
nobody wants any of those things. And then, of course, nobody really wants to kill a wild animal. I mean, of course, human safety is the first, but nobody wants something to happen to these animals that are just trying to get from point A to point B either. So.
Yeah, definitely. I think we've all seen that look in a deer's eyes and thought,
Yeah.
I have hypnotized that deer and it is not moving. But these are all really great pointers as we try to navigate the road here. One thing that I was recently checking out a study about daylight savings time. And, there are a lot of factors that go into this. Of course, we've got deer migrating, all kinds of things going on with the changing of the seasons and everything. But once we turn those clocks, do we go back or forward, Rene?
Fall. Yeah, I always have to think of the season. We fall backwards. Yeah, so we turn them back.
Once we do that, the collisions between deer and vehicles increase. And the study I was looking at said 16%. And of course, that has to do with what the deer are doing, but also what we're doing. So we're driving. We're more likely to be driving when it's dark out here. And so it is incumbent upon us to really be paying extra close attention. And we are pretty lucky that it hasn't been a real icy season yet. We're not quite there yet, but we know that when those roads are slippery, it makes it so much harder to slow down. And so if you're already being a little bit cautious, you're already kind of hitting the brakes there, you're not going too fast, you're going to, give yourself a favor there when you've got critters darting out in front of your vehicle to be able to have some time to slow down when it's icy too. So thank you for those tips. One other thing I wanted to ask you about, I had read recently kind of a warning that Game and Fish had advised folks out there to beware of kind of these, when you Google something, say you've got a question and that little, AI thing pops up and tries to summarize it for you. That is not always going to be trustworthy. And it sounds like it really hasn't been when it comes to some of our game and fish hunting state regulations here. So Rene, what should we be careful about? What have you guys been seeing on this topic?
Yeah, it came to our attention, in the last few weeks, a couple different ways. One was, everybody does this, right? You put it into Google. It's only been, Sarah, I want to say in the last year or year and a half, maybe it's been longer, but that it's all the AI at the top. And I don't love it. I just sort of, sometimes I'll read it, but then I'll always scroll past to find the first source, right? So like Game and Fish is the first source for information. AI could be pulling old information. It cannot tell the difference between what is legal and what is not, what is a passed bill in the legislature and what was only introduced. So something that happened recently was, I think on the legislative webpage, it showed a mountain lion bill that was introduced that had year-round seasons for mountain lions and no take. And AI was pulling that up for Wyoming, that was what our mountain lion seasons were. And we actually had a community that printed that out and started posting it around the community and spreading that word. Luckily, there were people that questioned it and called us and brought it to our attention. And we had a similar issue with some bird regulations, and it was pulling older regulations as active. So don't trust AI for those things. Go right to the source. And, everybody knows regulations can change every year. So AI might be sharing, again, outdated or incorrect information. The Game and Fish website has the correct information. Our printed regulations and handbooks, as well as, of course, the ones on the website, are the correct information, and calling and visiting your local Game and Fish office correct information. I would say too, like the way that our game and fish laws and regs are written is that it's incumbent upon the individual to know the laws. And so you can't, like, the game warden's not going to want to hear it if you're like, but I saw this online, doesn't matter. Or I saw this on Facebook, doesn't matter. Like, it's incumbent on you to make sure that you have the right information. Something else we've seen is sometimes AI will, people will do it, I think, for, to gain followers and gain reach and things on social media. They'll have AI images generated. And so that's a huge thing in AI. You can just type in what kind of image you want and it will create it. And it is wild and it can look very, very real. And so we've seen things like trail camera images of mountain lions when there weren't any, or, really large grizzly bear, like bigger than anything that, we might have in North America. So those things, again, check the source when you're seeing these things, whether it's on social media or posted somewhere locally, or you hear it from someone. Call Game and Fish. Look for our shield. I'm sure somebody can replicate that, but it doesn't seem like AI usually tries to do those things. So look for our shield, and then just always call us, for the real information. And sometimes it might be helpful to call us because you're bringing something to our attention that we didn't realize was going on either. So that's part of what happened this last time.
Yeah, we all have to kind of keep our guards up when it comes to this AI, that's becoming really, really more and more sophisticated, and it's harder for just about anyone to detect what's real and what's not, like from videos to still footage. I know my algorithm caught me appreciating a video of a bear who had gotten onto a trampoline. And since that first video, which I don't know if it was real or not, I'm sure the bear somewhere or another has enjoyed a trampoline, but I've seen so many and they're doing backflips and I know they're not real, but it's become really sophisticated and it's really easy to kind of be misled. And so we have to kind of keep our guard up and be a little bit suspicious about what we see on the internet. And always, when it comes to something that you need a firm answer for, we know we've got folks at Game and Fish who can help us out with that. Now, speaking of that, I know that oftentimes when people have questions or they find themselves in a bind or they're, out hunting and something goes goofy, that often happens after hours or on the weekend. Rene, what should folks do? How do they prepare for this situation where they need some help or need a little bit of guidance and it is either at night or on the weekend? What should we do?
Yeah, I think this is great. We talked before about, we talk about preparing for boating season on this show. We talk about preparing for hunting season and making sure that you have everything in your pack and extra food and water and all those things. But we don't often talk about, sometimes I think I have said to put the Stop Poaching hotline number in your phone. Mm-hmm. So this is a reminder. Again, if you're listening to the show, you can do this at the same time that you're listening, but not while you're driving if you're driving. So either pull over or do this later. But yeah, I think preparing for making sure you have your game warden's phone number or phone numbers in your phone. And so that could be your local one if you're hunting in your local area, but if you're hunting somewhere else, you really need it for the hunt area. And so what I would do if I were you is put in their name, and then of course, Game and Fish, game warden, or maybe it's the Rollins, East Rollins game warden. And then there's notes you can make, and you can, in the notes, put in deer hunt area this, you can put that in so that it saves it, so that when you need to go back and look, you can. And then of course, on our website, we have a map under, if you scroll all the way down to contact us and you hit that, it should bring up a page. I'm going to make sure it does, or about us. Nope, it is contact us. I told the first time, contact us. It's red at the bottom. There'll be a tab there. It says local game wardens. And so you can right there get their phone number. Now, some game wardens, most of them also have cell phones. So this is going to give you their landline, which is usually their home phone. Sometimes it's an office, depending, but their home phone. If you know you're going to be hunting and for sure it's going to be after hours or on the weekend, just call them, maybe not during the height of hunting season, but maybe, and also see if they'll share their cell phone. Or call now that I say this, the wardens are busy, call the front desk of like the Lander front desk. And our Lander game warden is Rob Shipe. And you can say, hey, does Rob share his cell phone number? I just want to program it in my phone in case something happens. So that's a great example. And then you're prepared. Something else you can do is if you previously programmed the stop poaching number in your phone, or if you only want to put that one in your phone, you can call that number, which just goes to dispatch to report something that happened to you. So what I see a lot is people saying, oh my gosh, I shot a spike and I thought it was a cow, or, the deer, the antler point restriction is 4 on one side and I thought it had 4 and then it doesn't, it only has 3, or, some little thing. And so someone is wanting to self-report, they don't know what to do, they're in the field. You can call stop poaching on yourself. I know that sounds scary, people, because they're like, no, I'm not a poacher. No, I agree, because you're calling. Anyway, it just goes to dispatch. So it just goes, to this room full of people, and then they can reach the game warden or biologist on the radio if they can't get them on the phone. So they're just another arm to kind of know who's on duty, who's in the field, where are they, who's the closest, who can help you. Because the other thing, like if it is something like that and it's an honest mistake, you also want to be able to, retain that game meat. And so that will be usually up to the discretion of a warden. And almost always they do. If they really find that this was just an innocent mistake, they're going to probably let you keep everything. And so you want to make sure that's still edible, all that meat, because you don't want a ticket for wasting an animal, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
And then if you're so far back in that you don't have any reception, you maybe only have a spot device, I would say, if something like that happens, to go ahead and pack that animal out, including evidence of sex. And, if they're, like I said, with the whole spike cow incident, and go ahead and pack out that whole head so you can show that evidence of what you kind of did that was a mistake. Pack that out, make sure you're taking care of that animal properly, and contact the game warden as soon as you get into service. So those are some great things to do. The other one, Sarah, we talked earlier about roadkill. The 511 app, I have it on my phone, well, for lots of reasons, but just to check, it's a Y.511 app, and I just, have it to check road conditions and view the cameras. But you can also report roadkill right on that app. So if you see roadkill, you can report it. Or if you hit an animal, you can report that you hit it, which is nice for YDOT to know, because they do want to pick them up. I think it even asks you, is this blocking traffic? So that's, could be really important. But also if you wanted to pick up that animal and use the animal for meat, you can do that right on that app too. So that's another one of those kind of be prepared pieces. If you do pick up an animal, I've had this question a lot this year too, you have to take the whole thing. You can't field dress it on the side of the road or only take the head. The field dressing on the side of the road is really a safety thing for kind of stopping on our highways. And then the head is, of course, you can't just take the head. So you have to be trying to use the whole animal as well. So hopefully if you do all these things to prepare, you'll never need any of this, right? That's what we say in our house. So
yeah. Well, I think it's really great to remind folks that we just have such an incredible team at Game and Fish working for us across the state, so there's no problem too big or too small for you to reach out and help. And that's what they are there for. And so, who needs AI when you've got Game and Fish right there ready to help you out with your questions about what's going on. If you find yourself in a situation where you're out in the field, that's what Game and Fish is there for. And I do want to just give out this number here that we've talking about, the stop poaching number. And that is where Renee's told us you can reach dispatch after hours. So even if you're not necessarily reporting a naughty poacher, or maybe it's just some mistake you've made and you want to make sure that you're checking in and figuring out what to do, that number is 1-877-WGFD-TIP. Or if you don't want to do the translation there from the letters to the numbers, it's 1-877-943-3847. As always, Renee, thank you so much for kind of shedding a light on all of the stuff going on behind the scenes at Game and Fish and giving us so many great tips about how we can, work to be prepared when we're out and about in the country here, where to go when we've got questions for Game and Fish. Thanks so much, Renee.
Thanks, Sarah.